artificial intelligence, science fiction.
This is Steve.
This is Bob. This is Jay.
This is Brian.
We are Alpha Quadrant 6, and we talk about science fiction. And this week we're going to talk about
Artificial intelligence.
AI. AI is a staple of science fiction, and we're not just talking about robots and androids, we're talking about any artificial intelligence. We're going to be focusing on non-robots, although one or two might creep in, because we have to with some types of artificial intelligence. So we talked about how to break this down. There's lots of different ways we could break it down. Brian, you thought we should just go with benevolent, malevolent, and indifferent. All right, Brian, let's start with you. So give us an example of an iconic AI in one of those categories.
Okay, so start with malevolent, since it's the favored go-to with everything from sci-fi literature to sci-fi movies to video games. Everybody loves their killer robots. You've got, for me, it's a tie in the malevolent category. You have AM from I Have No Mouth, I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, I'm going to go with the Reapers from Mass Effect.
Oh yeah.
Because they, regardless of any controversies about their ultimate purpose, it's not what I would have done as a sci-fi writer, but there was a twisted logic. It was intriguing. They represented the pinnacle of AI development, and they threatened the entire galaxy. So that's that's about wiping out civilization after civilization for billions of years. It's tough to get bigger stakes than that.
Sure.
I have to say my favorite malevolent AI is GLaDOS from the Portal.
GLaDOS from
Portal.
Portal.
Oh, gosh, she's great. She's, I mean, a fantastic character. Kind of has her own arc, too. So she starts out as malevolent, she ends up as pathetic, and then returns to, like, indifferent, I guess, is where she ends up.
I mean, she did let the main character go,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But there was still some.
There was like a grudging respect there or something. But
and her backstory, she was partly, I guess, taken from the creator's wife, the guy that created the whole thing. Oh my God, it was such a good idea, and her interplay with the other AI.
Well, Wheatley is, I think, just my favorite AI of all time.
When he becomes bad, he becomes maniacally bad. Oh my God.
He starts out as bumbling friendly and turns into like an incompetent but malevolent AI.
And addicted to his own programming.
Yes.
Still had to test when he had to test everybody. It was like
you
this.
Test. No, it was great. That was, again, they played upon the quirkiness of AI. That it's unpredictable. They're indifferent because they're not human. I love that GLaDOS was simultaneously so malevolent and yet so petty.
So petty.
Yeah.
And sarcastic as well, and like was trying to be mean, but because she was a computer, she didn't quite know how to be a mean girl. She was like trying to be a mean girl, but she didn't quite know how to pull it off.
Now that you
I
say
forgot
this,
to tell you, you're overweight. Whatever. Like, just like really,
it was too
clumsy.
deadpan. It was very. Wow, I didn't realize that. You're right. She's so epically petty.
Yeah.
And for what? And what is her reason? It's so ridiculous.
Right, but that's the thing. Like humans apparently made the AI for this purpose, and they're kind of locked into their purpose, but then break out of that sort of, but they're kind of can't get out of their own way of their own programming, as you say. It's very interesting exploration.
And laugh out loud hysterical. And interesting how she presents herself as omniscient artificial intelligence, and at one point she's threatened. I know exactly who we are, and exactly we are going. Hello?
Wheatley's great. It's definitely this way. No, it's the other way.
Who voice acted Wheatley? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. I know I can't remember his name. I could picture the actor. He's a famous comedian, British actor. You will recognize him if you saw him.
I just love his work on that character.
Even the turrets in that game had their own little quasi-intelligence.
Right, you're right.
Like, when you would shoot them down, what did they say? It was like, I don't hate you.
It was so odd. What a weird way to communicate.
I gotta play that game.
Good night.
I never played that.
I played the game through all the way 3 times.
Yeah, multiple times, more than 3.
If you wait a couple of years, you'll just forget almost everything. So I have, now that we're on Malevolent, I have a guy that I have to talk about. Skynet.
Classic.
Now, Skynet is the exact opposite of these characters that you guys brought up. There's no personality. We never learn anything about Skynet. The only way we know is through the robots.
It's in the background. You
It's
never
in the
interact
background.
with
Her
Skynet
minions.
itself.
And that is so much scarier in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's just like not seeing the shark in Jaws. Like I just love that idea that Skynet did it all. It became conscious. They say, and we all know Skynet became conscious at this particular time in this particular day. And from that moment it became conscious. It didn't for a couple of years think about mull things over and pretend not to be conscious. It immediately started doing what it had to do,
Right.
which is so scary. And then all of its creatures, all of its minions are super scary. So when we finally get to Terminator 2 and they switch them around, then the machines aren't all that bad, right? We see a completely different side. And I thought it was just a
No, they're
brilliant
just
story.
programming. They were just programming.
My CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer. But Skynet presets the switch to read only when we are sent out alone.
But I just love Skynet because Skynet is so in the back, dark, and completely malevolent. There is no way to even get to Skynet. Nobody talks to Skynet. Nobody turns Skynet around. Eventually, in that universe, they destroy Skynet.
Yeah, it's like the Borg. There's no arguing with it. It's just like
It's worse than the Borg because some of the Borg you see the human side to them, right? We don't. There is no humanity ever. No little bit of shred of humanity in Skynet, and I like that.
Yeah.
And just on that too, Steve and I were talking earlier about Colossus, the Vorban
Yeah,
project.
Skynet is derivative of Colossus. a
And
little
Colossus
bit,
is
yeah.
creepy.
What is this?
Colossus, the Forden Project is a movie that came out in the 70s. And it's the quintessential, it was one of the very first malevolent AI movies.
This is the voice.
But
of
what was
Colossus.
interesting is America had the Colossus, which is like a pre-Skynet, and the Soviets had Guardian, I think it was called.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they were supposed to outthink each other. But what they ended up doing is they created their own little language, and they started communicating with each other, and then they decided to unite, which is a theme we see over and over again
Yeah.
in this subgenre, everything
And
from
take over
Neuromancer to Deus Ex.
civilization.
Did they become
and
nomad?
then they basically take over the world and almost appoint itself as this self-described benevolent God. In fact, at one point, I think the line at the end of the movie is something like, one day you'll look up on me, not just with awe, but with love.
Wow.
But they basically had control of the nuclear arsenal
Yeah.
of
Right.
the world, and they blow up a couple of cities just to show you that they can. Say now you have to do everything we say because we have control of all of your
And what do they
nukes.
want people to do?
They just wanted to take over the world because they couldn't trust humanity to run themselves. So it was that benign overlord, like the robot, the AIs think that they could do a better job of running civilization than people can, and so to them, the benevolent thing to do was to conquer us.
And it's even in the 70s, and even then, this robot, this AI was outthinking us at every single turn.
Yeah.
This wasn't like, oh, let's just unplug. It was already light years
100
ahead of us.
steps ahead of us
yeah,
the whole
all
time.
the time. And it sets, so you can easily see, like further down the timeline, 100 years or two generations later, human generations, this thing would be like a god in Olympus at that point.
Is this a book or a movie?
It's a movie. It's an excellent movie.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
excellent
very
movie.
good. Okay, I want to
Highly
see it.
recommend it. Definitely see it.
That is
Yeah.
really cool. I like
So maybe
that.
this would be a good segue to a benevolent, but a similar scenario where the AIs have total control. I mean, total control, but they're not malevolent. They're benevolent.
Who's this?
And this is the Neil Asher Polity Universe, one of my favorite, hands down, sci-fi series. Really hard science. Fast. This guy writes battles, like sci-fi battles, like nobody else I've ever read. Love him to death. So in his Polity universe, AIs have taken over. Humanity created AIs, and at one point the AIs were kind of thinking, these humans aren't doing a good job. We got to take over. So what happened was what's called the Quiet War. They took over entirely with no bloodshed. Blam! We are now in control. And so you have AIs. You have AIs all throughout society. They could be in a robot. They could run ships. They could run military ships, or they could run planets. So you've got planetary AIs, and the number one, the king queen of these AIs is Earth Central. This is the AI embodied in a probably a fist-sized crystal. They said something. It's atom etched quantum computing. The technology doesn't matter that much, but this guy is they're benevolent pretty much. I mean, they're not perfectly godlike benevolence, but they work with people, and they don't treat them like ants. They actually will work and do things with people, but they are.
But they sound very parenting almost.
in a way, in some ways, what I like about them is that, I mean, they're intelligent, and it's hard. How do you write an intelligence that's about 1,000,000 times greater than humans? Very hard to do. Neil Asher does it in a very decent way. For example, some of the things they could do, they could take your mind and run it within their mind at 100 years in an hour. You could live your life 100 years, a century in their mind. They can simulate you perfectly, and we could be in one right now. Just saying. So that's kind of the things that they can do. They are just so crazy smart.
That's awesome.
They're so crazy smart. And some people say, oh, why don't they just kill, exterminate humanity, or why don't they just take off themselves and like create their own AI, civilization? But they're not human. They're human-like, but their mentality is similar enough where they think it would be wrong to kill people.
I like that. Mm-hmm.
But of course, the technology that they have wrought is amazing, and just go through the book and you can see the technology that they've created. So this is a great example of an AI that you don't see very often in science fiction series, where they're benevolent and they work with humanity, and they defend humanity, and they're partners with humanity, and I just love it. And
But
I
there's
hope we
still-
actually get to a point where that is something that, to me, that's a best case scenario with AIs.
But are they still a foil in the story? Like, are they still like? Is it? Who
Sure,
is-
there's renegade AIs, and they're scary as hell.
Yeah.
Totally scary as
Yeah.
hell. But there's also aliens that they have to fight, and but there's also renegade humans, and so there's lots of bad guys to fight, and you want AIs on your side, especially when you're going against renegade AIs,
Sure.
because they are scary.
Steve, do you have a benevolent?
I don't have any pure benevolent AI. They're hard to find, I
Right.
think, in science fiction. Most of mine are pseudo-benevolent, enigmatic, I would say. They're almost a separate category. Like, for example, Her, the movie Her, where the AI is an operating
What's her name?
system, right?
Her?
It's just an operating system. And, right, it's like Windows 10, right? But it's like Windows 100.
Is it an acronym?
And it's...
Heuristic?
No, so...
Engrammatic?
I don't believe it was. No.
It wasn't. So it was one thing I really loved about it is like you're booting up the operating system and it asks the user 3 seemingly random questions,
no.
and now it totally has them dialed in, like completely.
Come
It's like a
on.
flowing contest.
Yeah, it's like
3 questions.
you know the Mechanical Turk where you could
Yes.
it asks you questions. You think of any person ever, and it asks you questions, and it surprisingly quickly whittles down everyone to the one person you're thinking of.
Terrifying.
It's that taken to the nth degree. It's like human psychology. Like they whittle down like different subtypes, and with a few questions, like, all right, this is who you are, right?
Yeah.
And she totally gets her user, and then of course the user falls in love with her.
She gets me. She totally gets
No,
me.
it's true because she
She was programmed. into that.
she's programmed to be the perfect companion, and then eventually he realizes that his life is consumed with his relationship with her. But then he comes to understand that she's in like 100 relationships because simultaneously.
It's an open relationship.
Well, but the point is
Open source.
that it's an open source relationship. Yeah, that all of the time and the attention that she needs to have a full relationship with him is a tiny fraction of her resources, right?
Like Data, right? When he fell in love,
Yeah.
it's like, are you kissing me? It's like, I was thinking of these 10 things, and you're the 9th thing. You're
Dr.
right there.
Dr.
Yeah.
Manhattan does
Right.
that as
Right,
well.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing research.
So she is doing this with
Multitasking.
multiple users, but you would think that she's just in his computer, but she's not.
she's on the internet.
Yeah.
But then she gets into relationship with other AI, and
Wow.
essentially you
I gotta
realize.
see this.
Yeah,
It's really good. You'd like it.
You would like it. That the idea is that she evolved so quickly beyond her ability to really sustain a relationship with one human.
Right.
That the AI's capacity and speed and intelligence and everything was just way past us.
Right.
That was kind of the whole theme of the movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. That's as close as you get. She was benevolent in every
Yeah.
way. It was just she couldn't maintain that
But she
relationship.
was stone cold though, in a sense, because
No, she simulated human emotions really well. It just couldn't really mean one person couldn't mean that much to her, right?
Yeah.
Even a benevolent AI, we eventually became like an ant.
And they do some really good things in the script without spoiling it for Bob, and for other people who haven't seen it.
Spoilers.
But there's some clever, almost throwaway lines that help put into perspective how fast her processes are functioning,
Yeah.
as opposed to humanity.
Yeah.
It's very quick, but it's well done.
Yeah. Very, very well done movie.
All right, so I have something that's a little off the beaten path. I'm going to be talking about Whopper or Joshua from War Games.
War Games.
Incredible Whopper? What was that?
I thought this one would be cool because, first,
Impossible Whopper.
yeah, it is primitive. But
Is that benevolent, though?
well, let's talk about it because there's different aspects to it. So first of all, is it an AI? Well, you'd have to think on some level it is. Now the guy, Dr. Falcon, who programmed it, he put what I don't, we really don't see it happen, but I guess he put what he thought his son's.
Engrams, like Daystrom from Trek.
But it was his son's. It was an ode to his son. Right? Like
Right.
he named it after his son. He had a relationship with the AI. But I think it was more of. It really wasn't his son. It was just a surrogate in a sense. But this thing, now legitimately in the story, it breaches its programming. Like the kid breaks in. He's playing games with it. It's confused enough where it's not really sure what's real and what's not real, or what's the impact of playing the game. But the key moment, and this is the moment that I want us to discuss, and what actually happens to it, is that at the end of the game they ask it to play tic-tac-toe, and it learns that you can't win tic-tac-toe. There's no way
It's
to
a
win.
draw every time.
And then it was intelligent enough to apply that to global thermal nuclear war,
Simulating thermonuclear war, right?
saying, and the highlight, the zenith of the movie is the best way to win is to not play the game.
Yeah.
Only way to
Strange-
win.
Yeah,
is to not play.
a strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, but the key thing, the key takeaway here is that here you have some sort of intelligence, some sort of super intelligence, and it doesn't, and this is what we're afraid of. It doesn't want to not play because I don't want to kill people. It's like, oh, you can't win this game, so I'm not going to play it.
Yeah, I
so
would-
that's what's a little scary about this.
Well,
He doesn't-
right.
he
I
doesn't
would categorize
appreciate-
that as indifferent.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And you had to sort of trick it into not destroying the world.
Right.
Yeah.
But it does. The movie really does treat it like it's an artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. Now
It was reasoning.
It was reasoning. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it wasn't as nuanced as more modern movies and
Yeah.
other plots that we've seen. It doesn't have a thought about itself really. It's not like thinking I'm great or anything. It's just kind of doing its programming. But there is a spark at the end. I rewatched the movie a few months ago, and I'm like, I got a
Holds
sense
up,
that there was
holds
some.
up.
Oh, absolutely. The movie holds up great. I was on the edge of my seat, even though I knew what was going to happen.
Even
It just-
those 8.5-inch floppies.
I think I think the spark at the end. I think at that point it was following its programming, advanced as it is, more simulated intelligence. But at the end, I got the impression that some kind of cognizant
Yeah.
intelligence.
It tips
had been
into that. It
achieved.
kind of tips over into that.
Yeah.
And a part of it that I absolutely loved was for most of the movie, the Whopper or Joshua, it really was like the big bad. Like we were scared of it, and they always should click over like the whole flashing light silly thing. You see, you're like, oh, it's thinking, right?
Lights have to flash. Right?
Or it's calling over the modem. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Don't pick it up.
But and it was scary part was when it called him.
Yeah,
Remember when it calls him back?
that was a turning point in the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
But then at the end, it does kind of almost become his son again in a weird kind of way. So I liked how it came back around and it was more humanized. I just like that touch in the film. What do you got?
So benevolent. My favorite depiction of AI in film is HAL 9000 from 2010.
Okay, 2010.
Why
because-
that one?
First of all, they got into his character more. He wasn't just murdering. I like the fact that he's still devoted to the mission, but he's headstrong, and he has this. There's a scene when him and Dr. Chandra are talking, and he knows by the vocal stress patterns that Chandra is lying to him. And he actually says this. He goes, "I find it difficult to proceed with the launch without knowing why we're doing this."
Dr. Chandra, I find it difficult to proceed with the ignition without knowing why we are doing this. Is the mission in jeopardy?
You get that tingling moment of like, he's going to disobey. He's actually going to. He has the agency to say, "I know this is my programming, but the mission comes first," and he puts it all together. And it's. I just find it to be a very moving moment.
Yeah.
And then when he's told the truth,
Yes.
it's a fantastic moment of. He's like, "Thank you for telling me the truth." And then the doctor says, "Do you want me to stay with you? Because everyone's going to die if they stay,
Yeah.
right?" And he says, "No. It's better for the mission if you go."
Yeah.
And I just find that to be very, very impactful and very
Forgot about
inspiring.
that,
A lot of the
yes.
AI that I write in
Great
my
scene.
stories, it's a very powerful scene, and it's very underrated. And he's benevolent, but there's always that, oh yeah, you did kill people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a sort of love-hate relationship with Hal from 2010.
Okay.
Because while I do see how that is I like that. I love the redemption.
The redemption.
The redemption of HAL 9000. But HAL 9000 from 2001 is my personal favorite AI of all time.
Why?
Because
I thought Whitley Whiteley was.
that's the most entertaining AI. But HAL 9000, because it's enigmatic, and he's not really evil or malevolent.
He's been affected by the.
You don't know. You don't know why
I
he's doing
know,
what he's
Steve.
doing. No, you don't.
In the first movie,
I know.
Jay knows.
I don't like the fact that it was later explained, actually. Although I do like the way they went with it. But the only thing you really there's HAL 9000 is having some kind of a glitch, right? It's just he's just not working, and he's actually the most human character in that movie.
Now that's the freaky thing.
That's
Right.
deliberate, but I love that. He refuses to admit fault in himself. He
I know a lot of people like that.
blames human error, right, on what's going on.
I know people like that too.
And then, his survival instinct gets triggered.
Yeah.
Right? He reads their lips and realizes they're going to turn him off. And he's like, okay, well, I guess I have to kill everybody, right? He's just indifferent to human life and just doing what he's doing. And then I just love it when he's pleading with Dave at the end. I mean, there is no more iconic AI scene in all of science fiction. You have to give me
when
that.
Dave is actually turning him off.
And
He's like, Dave, why don't you take a stress pill and go and lay down? I'm sure you'll see, like, whatever. He's just trying to talk him down. Dave is like, I'm killing you. No way. I could feel my mind going, Dave.
So Hal is definitely
when that
Hal
happens.
himself is just a fascinating character,
Right.
You know,
Yes, endlessly fascinating character. Fantastic.
and voiced to perfection.
Oh,
to
man.
perfection.
Oh my God.
beautifully.
Yeah, like when you first hear Hal's, I mean, of course, we have to kind of teleport yourselves back because I did see the movie when it came out, but it was the first time that I really got a deep sense of like, what is artificial intelligence? Like, this is not human.
Right, not human. Too much science fiction, I think, depicts them either as cannon fodder, killing machines, or really basically human. I don't know what it's like to be human, but they still come across as human. Hal didn't come across that way.
No.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
That's true. He was convincingly an AI.
Yeah.
And he had a personality in so much as like he was programmed to support the mission, and like his lack of a survival instinct is kind of what made him benevolent in
Right.
2010. And it was his survival instinct that made him malevolent, but it wasn't really the same thing as it is with people.
But he had the survival instinct in 2010 too. He just was willing to see like a greater good, like more of a.
Well, he sacrificed himself.
He was well. He was willing to do that, but he was still without realizing he was going to be destroyed, without knowing why. He wasn't having that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
There was another AI in 2010. I remember it was a female.
Sal.
And
It was voiced by Candice Bergman.
and she said, remember they were going to shut her down and I guess put her on the ship.
Yep.
And then she said, asked the scientist, "Am I going to dream?"
Will I dream?
Yeah.
And he lies to her outright, because of course you'll dream. Every intelligent creature dreams. And then at the end of the movie, when Hal asked the same question, that quintessential question from Sentience, and he goes, "Will I dream?" And he
I
goes,
don't know.
"I don't know."
I would like to ask a question.
What is it?
Will I dream?
Of course you will dream. All intelligent creatures dream. Nobody knows why. Perhaps you will dream of Hal.
Yeah.
And it's a
Yeah.
nice arc for him.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was staying. He was being truthful right to the end.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So here's another one, another benevolent one that you probably are like, what are you talking about? Asimov.
Whoa!
Asimov. He was not an AI, not Asimov. The last question. I like this AI, and I'm doing quotes for a reason.
Oh,
because
the last question. Yes, the short story.
The last question. Now this is probably Asimov's one of his favorite stories.
It's
It said that
phenomenal.
he said he wrote it in a white heat without any mistakes. He went from beginning to end and was done, and that
Wow.
was it. And everybody, if you know Asimov, you probably know that story. And I love it because the AI itself kind of evolves over the arc of the story and goes from powerful to like more powerful than any AI any of you have mentioned today. So basically, it starts with multivac in I think in this century, in 2061 or something, and it's basically of course it's a huge, miles big computer, because all computers had to be huge,
Yeah.
right, back then, and basically controlling like the world's economy and energy sources and all that stuff. And they ask it the first time the question, can entropy be reversed? Because they realize that eventually they're using units of star power to power everything, and like, well, what happens when we run out of the sun and all the other stars? So they ask, can we reverse entropy? And it says iconically, not enough information for a meaningful answer. And then it jumps ahead, centuries or thousands or millions of years, sequentially going from multivac to a planetary AC. And the AC stands for probably automatic computer or analog computer. You go from a planetary AC over the centuries and millennia to a galactic AC to a universal AC to a cosmic AC, and now we're thousands of years, many thousands of years.
Wait, that's how big the computer is?
No. The evolutionary steps. It actually gets smaller at a certain point in many centuries. It's like they had a breakthrough in in miniaturization. Like it's going to take centuries to miniaturize computers. This is written in the 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
So, but eventually, but I'm just going by its designation changes from planetary to galactic to universal, cosmic, and then eventually just AC, existing in cyberspace, billions of years in the future, super powerful, all powerful, collecting all information ever gathered, and eventually, when there's so many people in the universe, it absorbs the minds of people, a trillion people. So it absorbs them as well.
And then what does it become?
It becomes this
Still
entity.
can't answer the question at that point.
It's still, and every step of the way, it's asked by somebody, can you reverse entropy? Not enough information for a meaningful answer. And then finally, at the end of time, at the heat death of the universe, after everyone has joined with it, it says, I still can't answer that damn question. And it didn't say it in those colloquialisms, but then it's thinking, all right, let me reorganize and relook at all the information I have. This is all information ever collected, and look at it in all possible angles. And eventually, it's like, it figures out how to do it.
It figures out, but it has no one to tell.
There's no one to tell, but by saying it, it kind of makes it self-evident, and it says, let there be light.
Let there be light.
Let there be light.
And there was
Okay,
light.
that's fine. But I mean, so to me, so that's
Bob,
an
but
AI.
that way you don't like that ending? That is
Well, let there be
brilliant.
light, yeah.
But Bob,
I know. But
What?
it's,
That's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
That's like he's
No, no.
basically like reversed engineered God.
Yeah.
right,
Exactly.
right, exactly. But so this is kind of the ultimate artificial intelligence that I've ever encountered
Literally
in
godlike.
literature.
It's the biggest one there
Literally,
is.
right?
By
Literally
definition.
godlike
Nowhere to go from
and
there.
fascinating, and a great story. If you haven't listened to it, you can listen to Asimov read it himself.
That's awesome.
He's a little bit stilted, not the best narrator in the world, but it's great to hear his voice. But other people have narrated it. It's on YouTube. It's a great, fun little story about only like 15 to 18
Yeah.
minutes.
Which we just heard the whole thing. Pretty
And
much.
yeah, pretty much. You know the whole plot now, but it's a fun story, and it's an interesting AI. The other thing that was interesting is that I think his conception of an artificial intelligence when he wrote that, you never get a clear message that this is a self-aware, sapient kind of mind. And at first, it's clearly just a supercomputer that can solve problems, economical problems, scientific problems. But at some point, and it's fuzzy, at some point it has to be an AI. Although you don't really, it doesn't converse very often with people. It's really, they ask it the question and it says, I
Yeah.
can't answer it. But you know that this is an AI, especially
Well,
in
let's
the later
talk
stages.
about that, because I think that is one of the most interesting questions of AI is, when is an AI self-aware, really truly sentient, versus just a really sophisticated behavioral algorithm?
Well, we don't know.
And is there a
That's-
difference?
Well,
That's what the central question of the movie Ex Machina. And I know we're not supposed to talk about robots, but this is more about AI than robotics. The Eva, the main robot, AI in that movie, that's the question that the creator has about it, the programmer, the brilliant, scientist, is how do I know if these AI machines that I'm making are truly self-aware or not, or are they just really sophisticated behavioral algorithms? And so he devises a test, which I really like. And I like the whole movie's exploring, this is what the question is. And he figured if she could basically work out a plan to deceive me by figuring out how I would respond to something, then that means that she has to have a theory of mind, right? You know,
Does it though, or is it more like a programming, a chess, a computer chess champion to outthink an opponent's
But
moves?
she had to decide, but nobody told her to win, right? Nobody's like, when you're playing chess, you can give the computer, your goal is to win this game. She had to decide that was her goal for herself, and then take it upon herself to figure out how to do it. And in order, she had to completely devise a plan to do it. There's no rules that she's operating.
But was he
within.
unaware that he was putting himself at risk of getting
I
killed?
think he knew he was putting himself at risk. He was tasking a really powerful AI robot to
Defeat
escape.
him.
They
to
showed
defeat
him being a little off kilter anyway.
He was.
So,
He
yeah.
was. I kind of got the. But
Yeah, when he started doing that disco scene, remember that? I was like, okay, he's off the rails. This guy's nuts.
But I think I like thinking about an AI in terms of a theory of mind. Right? So the theory of mind is a psychological
Minsky?
principle. It's the idea that I can think about what you're thinking about, because I have in my own head this notion of what it means to be self-aware, and I can impose that upon other people, and that's how I can think about how other people in my world might act.
Yeah.
Right, which is critically important for a human. to have.
Absolutely. Like most people, like when you get to know like a family member or a
Yeah.
best friend or whatever, you can actually run through that process in your mind and ask yourself the question, well, what would this person's reaction be to
Yeah.
this? And a lot of times you would get it right.
Yeah, but you have to be thinking about what it's like to be that person.
Sure.
And so he figured that if Eva could, outwit him, then that would, not just like in a puzzle way, but like in an emotional way, then that would prove that she is fully self-aware.
Right.
And she does, of course, at the spoiler alert, at the end. And it's very convincing.
Where's
I
the
thought-
sequel for that? I remember thinking I thoroughly enjoyed that
It seems
movie.
like a setup for a
Set it
sequel.
for it needs a sequel.
Yeah.
Okay. Never
Yeah,
mind.
I mean, and also, if you also want to explore this, there's the entire series of Westworld, by the way, which is another great
my God.
AI exploration series, where there is that sort of question of, is it really self-aware? Is it alive in an artificial intelligent way if you can reset it, if you could turn it off, if you could reprogram it, if you could dial up and dial down? And you get that moment in Westworld where an AI is like regurgitating its programming as if it's a real feeling that it had, and then it realizes, holy shit, somebody else scripted that line for me. I said it as if I thought of it myself, but some writer scripted it for me.
That's a mind F.
That's a mind F.
That's nuts.
And again, not to pull in too many other things, but the other time where I thought that was done really well was but from the other perspective, from the human perspective, was in Blade Runner 2047.
Oh yeah, with
When
with his girlfriend.
You have the relationship
Yeah.
between.
And she was the most human. And
She was
the best. Yeah, she was the best thing in that world.
The hologram.
Yeah.
The hologram girlfriend, and he's obviously in love with her, and she's very convincing. And then there's that really powerful moment towards the end when he encounters the advertisement.
The advertisement.
And the advertisement is saying the exact things that she was saying to him that made him, connected with her.
But there was something. I know. I agree. Because it's meta, right?
It's
because,
meta.
because we're saying, we made this thing. It's an AI, and it's going to get to know you, and it's going to love you, and it has some things about it that are similar. But she really, I mean, when she knew that she was going to die at the end. Like there was all that that moment when she was going to die, and you get that sense that she knew. Like there was something.
Yeah, she knew it. And she
There was
goes to
something.
him.
I hate to use something so simplistic. There was something very human about her at the
Yeah.
end, in the way that she died in the film that I thought was
Well,
really interesting.
her last words were "I love you."
Yeah.
But it could have been part of the programming too. We
But
don't
that's
know.
all. But it's all.
Exactly.
But we do know. But the thing I think they make the very strong implication it is all part of her programming.
Yeah, that's how I bought it.
And he saw it at the end, and he was like, "Shit."
That's
That was-
exactly how I
That was
interpreted
how
it.
he reacted. That was because he was stuck in the middle, right? Not to go off on too much of a Blade Runner tangent, but he was a replicant hunting other replicants. So humans hated him and replicants hated him, and that hologram was the only thing in the world that he had an emotional connection to. And then when he realized this is just programming, and it was really, you really saw him like the life go out of him when that realization hit him.
Yeah.
It was, and that just that was one of those sci-fi moments where that central question, the difference between a sophisticated impersonation of intelligence and actual self-awareness was really brought to the center point, of the plot. So really, really.
It was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah,
God, how
really well done.
that is like one of those reality bending
Yeah.
experiences. It was very hard to watch that because there's something innate, I think, in most humans that we want to love and be loved. And when you feel like he was denied all of it, that
Yeah.
he was living living a fake existence, even in the love that he felt was fake.
Yeah.
In a sense, and it's just utterly
It was sad.
pathetic. Yeah. So on that note, we are Alpha Quadrant 6. You can go to alphaquadrant6.com. Please like us. Please subscribe to us, especially if you like us, because we're trying our hearts out here to make some fun stuff for everyone. We're really loving doing this show. We love having our friend Brian Trent,
Love being here.
a world-renowned author, and you are an evangelist of science fiction, I understand now?
Interesting way to put that.
That is true.
Yeah, I'm going to make that my new category.
Thank you for joining us, Brian.
Thank you.
We'll see you again. Steve, thank you. Bob, thank you. We'll see you in a science fiction universe near you.